Lockheed Martin made $71 billion in 2024, and it never once had to convince a regular customer to buy anything. Buried inside that number was a $2 billion hole, and by law, Lockheed can't tell investors what actually caused it. Here's why: nearly 3 out of every $4 Lockheed makes comes from a single customer, the United States government. That's not really a company selling products. That's closer to a subcontractor with one permanent client, and that client funds the research before a single part gets built. Split 4 ways: fighter jets, helicopters and radar systems, missiles and space hardware, and one of those segments quietly dominates everything else. A single aircraft program, the F-35, generated over a quarter of Lockheed's entire revenue, but that jet money comes with strings nobody talks about. Because while the F-35 was printing money, 2 other programs were quietly blowing through their budgets, and Lockheed had already promised the government a fixed price. That's the payoff to our earlier question: $2 billion in losses, mostly booked in a single quarter, on contracts so sensitive Lockheed can't legally name them in an earnings call. Here's the model that survives a $2 billion miss: win contracts almost nobody else can bid on, let the customer fund development, then get paid for decades servicing what you built. That's how you lose $2 billion in a quarter and still end the year with a record $176 billion backlog waiting to be built. And it's not just the Pentagon. Over a quarter of Lockheed's sales now come from allied governments buying American hardware the exact same way. Lockheed doesn't really compete for customers. It collects rent on decades-long contracts, and it can absorb a $1 billion miss because the next 30 years are already on the books. Next up, how Apple turns a phone you already own into a $1 trillion services machine. Subscribe and hit like, a new business teared on every day.